Can we engineer the weather? Cloud seeding is a form of weather modification that can produce what we want more or less of. More rain or snow, or even smaller hail pellets. China is building the world's largest weather modification system to artificially enhance rain that will cover an area of over 2.1 million square miles by 2025.
The new people who want to know what this is and why it's happening. Can you give us an introduction?
Yeah, again, the term geoengineering, aka chemtrails, that are the layman's term for what we see happening in the skies, but this is weather modification on a global scale. In fact, these programs are so large and so all-encompassing that all other weather modification programs that go on a smaller regional basis are virtually, they're negated by the...
Weather modification, it's a thing! It's been a cost-effective global business since 2015. Companies like these, they can make sure it doesn't rain, or make sure it does. In 2008, the Chinese used cloud seeding for the Olympics and again in July of 2021 for a political event to make sure that the weather was nice and clear. Chinese seem to be really good at it. They can actually affect large areas.
All right, friends, here we have the obvious frequency pattern in the clouds. Everybody have a little gander. You see those ripples in the clouds? Yes, sweet friends, that is not normal, okay? That actually is proof that they're targeting this area with their weather modification. I know in this area of Arizona where I live, yesterday there were heavy chemtrails, and today it looks like they are definitely targeting this area.
Flash flood warning in.
Oh, flash flood coming. Okay, this makes sense. So they're probably trying to bring in some rain here, but this right here, these patterns that you see in the clouds, these are abnormal, guys. This is a clear indicator that your area is being targeted with their weather modification system.
If you place a layer of sand on a vibration table and turn on the table, the sand will start to form intricate patterns. When a sound wave hits an object, it causes the object to vibrate. The frequency of the sound wave determines the rate at which the object vibrates. For example, a high-pitched sound wave will cause the object to vibrate more rapidly than a low-pitched sound wave. At low frequencies, the sand grains will form simple patterns such as straight lines or circles. At high frequencies, the sand grains will form more complex patterns such as flowers or snowflakes. The patterns that form depend on the frequency of the vibration table. The complexity of sand patterns and how they interact with frequencies is just one example of the order and intelligence that is behind creation. The Bible tells us that God is a God of order. In the book of Colossians, we read that all things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. When we look at the world around us, we see overwhelming evidence of a creator.
You guys want to see something crazy? Okay. Clean finger. Had a good rain last night. Now you're watching me, so watching I'm not putting anything else on my... This is just the stuff that after it dried up, after last night's rain. But it's magnetic.
I bring to you Operation Blotting Out the Sun. Keep watching for a 360 tour of a weather modification plane.
Weather modification, it's a thing. It's been a cost-effective global business since 2015. Companies like these, they can make sure it doesn't rain, or make sure it does. In 2008, the Chinese used cloud seeding for the Olympics, and again in July of 2021 for a political event to make sure that the weather was nice and clear. Chinese seem to be really good at it. They can actually affect large areas. Dozens of countries use cloud seeding. It's no longer considered a fringe science. Yes, indeed, they've come a long way since the first known American program, Project Sirius, in 1947. Around the same time that the golden age of capitalism occurred. Of course, cloud seeding has been weaponized in the past. Operation Popeye. With Operation Popeye, America used weather modification against their enemies in the Vietnam War. They were successful at extending the monsoon season. There were some real effects, so much so that, after that, weather warfare was banned in 1978. Now, that doesn't mean, just because it's been banned, that people are still not worried about it.
Can we engineer the weather? Cloud seeding is a form of weather modification that can produce what we want more or less of. More rain or snow, or even smaller hail pellets. China is building the world's largest weather modification system to artificially enhance rain that will cover an area of over 2.1 million square miles by 2025. Today, at least 52 countries across the globe are using some sort of weather modification program. While it may sound too good to be true, the technology has been around for more than 75 years. Clouds are made up of tiny water droplets. Groups of droplets form water vapor, or ice crystals. By itself, this water vapor isn't dense enough to fall to the ground as precipitation. Instead, it rises until it becomes supercooled and condenses around tiny particles of dust in the sky, called condensation nuclei. It takes billions of these condensed water droplets to form a visible cloud. In cloud seeding, a seeding agent is used as the condensation nuclei. Typical seeding agents are chemicals such as silver iodide, potassium iodide, or solid carbon dioxide. These are shot into clouds by rockets or sprayed into clouds using drones or aircraft. Unattached supercooled water vapor molecules in the clouds condense around these particles. The condensed water vapor droplets then group together, becoming larger and heavier. This process continues until the droplets are large enough to fall as rain. Recently, the UAE created artificial rain using drones. These drones targeted certain clouds with electrical discharges through concentrated lasers to force water droplets to pool in the air, triggering the desired rainfall.
New people who want to know what this is and why it's happening. Can you give us an introduction?
Yeah, again, the term geoengineering, aka chemtrails, that are the layman's term for what we see happening in the skies, but this is weather modification on a global scale. In fact, these programs are so large and so all-encompassing that all other weather modification programs that go on a smaller regional basis are virtually, they're negated by the scope and scale of the global geoengineering programs. And these programs involve a number of aspects. You have the saturation of the atmosphere with various chemical and metal particulates. And there appear to be various purposes and objectives with this saturation. In conjunction with the saturation, which ionizes the atmosphere, it makes the atmosphere more conductive, we have the HAARP facilities, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. These are ionosphere heaters. Many have heard of the HAARP facilities. There's not just one or two or three. We believe there's at least 18 around the globe, possibly with 3 more being built in Antarctica right now. And once the atmosphere is saturated with these particulates, and then you add the ionosphere heaters, the entire weather system globally is virtually being thwarted. There is no natural weather at this point, and we really don't know what sort of climate conditions we would have necessarily if these programs were brought to a halt, and they desperately need to be brought to a halt because the saturation of the atmosphere is thwarting the hydrological cycle. It's totally disrupting the rain cycle. Again, we have the artificially nucleated snowstorms, which I just mentioned. You can't go from 100 degrees to snow in one day without a whole lot of help. This includes jet stream manipulation with the HARB facilities, and we are not guessing at this. We have monitoring sources for this signal, and we can see where the signal is most intense, and that's what steers the jet stream. So then you add artificial ice nucleation, which is a chemical nucleation process. They can turn what should have been rain into snow and drop the temperatures of these storm systems by this artificial chemical nucleation. This isn't sci-fi. This is hard science fact. The weather disseminating agencies are trying desperately their task, and they're all owned at the very top, it appears, by the Rothschilds and or other parts of the global elite complex. Rothschilds in particular are ownership of Weather Channel, Weather Central, Weather Underground. And it was imperative that they own these agencies, otherwise there would be great discrepancy in trying to explain away these events.
We're here in Santa Barbara County, home to one of the longest running cloud seeding operations in the country. We've got some ground-based cloud seeding equipment right here, and we're going to get to hear all about how it works and see it in action. Let's check it out. Cloud seeding is the most common type of weather modification, and it has many different techniques and applications. Today, it's mostly used to increase rain and snowfall, reduce the size of hail, and reduce fog at airports.
Traditionally, cloud seeding has been done from the air. So airplanes have had racks on them where these same flares are positioned on the airplane, and the airplane flies into the storm. So in order to reduce the cost to the client and reduce our carbon footprint, we've been able to station these on the ground. Now, we can do this in places where weather permits.
Behind a barbed wire fence designed to keep away curious cattle, the cloud seeding gear awaits the right kind of weather.
So these are referred to as AHOGs. That stands for Automated High Output Ground Seeding Systems. We've got three primary components of our equipment here. The first is the control module that you see behind me. Then we have our actual cloud seeding flares. The cameras for security. It also helps us observe weather conditions in real time and make sure that all of the equipment is operating correctly during a storm. Inside these canisters are the flares with the seeding agents. The canisters are used as spark arresters, so they prevent sparks from reaching the ground. So if we pull off the spark arrestor, you can see the flare inside. The ignition of the flares are controlled from a control module that's behind us. So the white triangle there is a cell service modem, and then the solar panel keeps us powered. Inside we have a battery and then a control board. So the control board interacts with the software. We're linked or synced with the software in Utah currently, and that allows us to fire or ignite any of the flares from that remote location.
Because of the lack of clouds and proper wind conditions, today is not a good day for cloud seeding at all. But Garrett and his team are going to light a flare for us anyway, so we can show you how it works. There's just one small problem. The battery in the control module died shortly before we arrived, but it's nothing a little jump start can't fix. After a little juice from Garrett's truck, it's time to set off the flare.
The primary seeding agent in this is silver iodide. Silver iodide is a simple compound. It's polar in nature like water, so there's chemical properties that help attract water molecules to silver iodide. It's also structured molecularly similar to ice. So it helps generate or helps spawn the generation of ice buildup, and then that becomes a hailstone or a snowflake that falls here primarily as rain. So one flare like this has billions and billions of potential sites for that water to congregate around. We'll launch them in sequences. We watch the radar to see when bands of the highest concentration of liquid water are passing above us in the clouds, and we try to target those high concentration pockets in the storm systems. We'll launch between 3 and 20 flares for a typical storm. Once the flare is lit, it takes a little bit of time to carry up into the clouds, and once it's up at the proper elevation, it'll take about 20 minutes to instigate the rain or the snow process. So overall, you're probably looking at about 40 to 45 minutes before you're seeing the maximum result. And that's why we're stationed miles away from our target area. So we have very specific targets that drain directly into major water basins, and we time these events to correlate with rain above those intended targets. One of the biggest questions, or most common questions that we receive, relates to the safety of silver iodide. Silver is biologically inert, so it will not interact in a negative fashion with plant or animal life. Iodine is actually a critical building block of a number of hormones in animals, so it is safe as well. In fact, if you look at table salt or baby formula, you'll see iodine in its molecular form as an additive in those commonly consumed substances.
But what about other potential adverse effects? Could cloud seeding affect communities outside the targeted areas?
Sometimes there is a concern about robbing Peter to pay Paul. So are we benefiting California at the expense of Nevada? And the truth is that storm systems, when they move over off the coastline, only about 10% of that moisture is going to fall in the form of precip. And we're looking at increasing that to about 11% because we have about a 10% increase in the natural storm's productivity. So going from 10% to 11% in California has an insignificant impact on the amount of precip that will still be available in Nevada or Utah.
Built into the program are kind of checks to make sure that we don't come across anything negative. When there are high-intensity storms, we won't seed. If the reservoirs are full, we won't seed. If the rivers are flowing a lot, maybe near flood capacity, we won't seed.
We hope that the conditions that exist right now will turn around and that we will not face the severity of droughts that we're facing, particularly this year. But a number of scientific articles are suggesting otherwise. And as we look into the future, we need to again consider conservation first. So the ability for us is to conserve how we use water and the ways that we store the water. And then layer on that efforts like weather modification and cloud seeding to help increase the rainfall that we do receive. It's very important that we take advantage of every opportunity we have to generate water in a sustainable way.
Anybody who's interested in learning more about cloud seeding, I've got links to scientific studies and official reports down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more. If you want to see more What the Future episodes, check out this playlist right here. Hope this video seeded your imagination. Conserve water. See you next time.
NASA's playing God. They're making their own weather.
Don't worry if you can't hear what I'm saying. I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And as it turns out, the cleanest. Now, the most amazing thing is that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain. I told you. It's raining. That's unbelievable. Oh. NASA's playing God. It's making its own weather.
Manipulating clouds to enhance rain or snowfall. That's called cloud seeding. And it's what India's capital, New Delhi, is currently planning on doing to wash away the deadly air pollution that has shrouded the city for weeks. Let me explain. Clouds are made up of tiny water droplets or ice crystals formed when water vapor in the atmosphere cools and condenses around dust or salt particles. These particles are known as condensation or ice nuclei. Without them, raindrops or snowflakes couldn't form and precipitation wouldn't happen. Cloud seeding is a weather modification technique that helps enhance precipitation. There are two ways to do this. The first is to introduce tiny ice nuclei into certain types of sub-freezing clouds. This provides a base for snowflakes to form and fall from the clouds. The second involves flying an aircraft to spray clouds with ice nuclei, like silver iodide particles or dry ice, to trigger precipitation. Cloud seeding can help boost winter snowfall and increase snow on mountains. But will cloud seeding really wash away air pollution, like India wants to do? Yes, but only temporarily. That's because in New Delhi, the point of cloud seeding is to manufacture enough rainfall to capture pollutants in the air and wash them to the ground. This will help substantially reduce the concentration of pollutants in the air for a while. But the root cause of air pollution cannot be washed away with extra rain, meaning this method is only a temporary fix.